Welcome to the Heather Penny Podcast, where our goal is to help you reach your potential by increasing clarity, building confidence, and engaging courage. Dr. Heather Penny is a leadership coach, trusted advisor, and admired author. I'm Christina Morales, a writer and marketer, and Heather is my dear friend, and you're on the road to all of my coaching sessions, so come on. Today we're going to talk about grace-based goals, showing grace in the new year. In October and November, we had a great series entitled Grace Space, and we received over 160 downloads and a ton of wonderful feedback. So I thought we would revisit it and talk about how to implement grace-based goals in the new year as we're doing a fresh start. So today we're going to talk about harnessing the power of grace space, making goals for the new year, and how we can show grace, kindness, and health to ourselves and to help others. Heather, can you review a little bit about grace space? If someone hasn't heard our series, they should go back and listen to it. But can you tell us a little bit about the purpose of this topic and how have your clients been using this and what have you seen?
Oh, sure. First of all, thanks for listening, everyone. It's been fun hearing the feedback, and I've been enjoying hearing how grace space is being applied in your homes and in your works and your businesses. So basically, as I started working with clients, what I started seeing was, we have this term safe space, which is a valuable term, and I like it, and I see what's happening. What's happening in our corporate client, this industry that I'm working in, was I just started realizing there's a very high level of trust amongst the leaders. We've worked hard together, and they're basically all very good people and high functioning people. And I started saying, I don't think we need safe spaces anymore. Now, I won't lie to you. When I first came in, I was like, yeah, we need some safe spaces. There's a lot of anger and frustration and pent up, emotions, and we're figuring out how to talk to each other and build trust and open lines of communication. And frankly, I wanted my own safe space in the company. So, we kind of were able to work through that. And I was so amazed at what I learned from all of these people. And it's, I see myself in everybody. And I think as we work together, and the older you get with working with humanity, you begin to see we all have similar threads in our stories. We've all experienced shame. We've all experienced guilt. We've all experienced revenge, judgment. You name it. We all have some hard places in our story that we're trying to recover from. Mm-hmm. So I think as I gently honor the commonalities of being human, I started realizing I think we can do better. I think if we're constantly just looking for safe space, what are we insinuating? The world is against us and I got to go run for cover. And I think, kind of in the words of my belief system, I think I wanted to reach for a much higher belief and a more of what I call a truer belief, and saying, I think my true belief is we get to start trusting one another and in growing our collective consciousness, so to speak, growing our collective ability to trust. And I think that's what I want to call grace space. So it's kind of these 7 areas of learning how to respond versus react is the first one. Mm-hmm. The second one is learn how to question versus accuse. Mm-hmm. Third one is learning receptivity versus defensiveness. The fourth one is constructive language versus destructive language. The fifth one is learning how to have connection versus protection. The sixth one is really about freedom versus control. And then the last one is my favorite, trust versus fear. Mm-hmm. So I think you can see that I was trying to create more of a language around it. As I started working with clients, I said, I want to create a term that is a higher level besides just safe space. And I want to start creating grace space. And then I want to define what that means with these seven attributes. So that's given us kind of a tool, so to speak, or something to hook into to start talking about a much higher level of thinking and a higher level of relating to one another. That's trickled out into the personal lives. And a lot of my clients will take what they're learning in their professional worlds and they'll take them into their homes. So what we're seeing is this transfer of knowledge that's going into the personal and the professional spaces. And that's exciting for me. That tells me that's a deep truth that works with all humanity. So that's what I'm excited about. I guess that's a brief nutshell of grace space.
That's awesome. So when the employees are coming to you, are they saying like, I realized that we were having a conflict because I was working in fear. And so I was protecting myself. Like, are they using the verbiage to address their feelings? Because a lot of times we have emotions or we're upset and we don't know why. Is this giving them the tools to further the conversation and to get to the root of the issue?
Yeah. And it's more importantly, it's given the tools. A lot of us have clarity on why we're spiraling down. We're fearful, we're mistrusting, we're angry, we're whatever, prideful, arrogant, judging. We don't have a lot of tools for how to spiral up. So my focus again is always about, we could probably spend years talking about all the things we failed in. I'd like to stop the conversation there, and I'd like us to start talking about what we're good in so that we can start spiraling up. So this is kind of a handle to start giving people this idea of how to move forward, how to move themselves forward, how to bring something to the conversation, to the relationship, how to create their own level of grace space. So when you step into a conflict, are you going to accuse or are you going to question? If you are avoiding a conflict there at work, is it because of the trust and the fear? Where do you want to start engaging trust, and where do you want to start moving away from fear? If you are trying to craft your language into how to talk about it, is it constructive or is it destructive? So I'm just kind of showing people that they have the power to bring this into a conversation, into a relationship, into a workforce or a team, wherever you're at, wherever there's a human being, you can implement your own level of grace space. And I think this is just at any level of humanity, it gives them a higher level of conversation. And that's always been my hope as a coach, to give people tools to say, we can move better. We can move forward better as a humanity force. We can collectively find ways to create spaces that allow us to be our best selves.
And it's perfect timing because we're almost at a year of contending with COVID-19. And a lot of people are struggling emotionally, financially, physically. How can we show grace when we're all feeling confused, worn down, frustrated? There's so many things, and people are fighting about, is the vaccine good or bad? Is sheltering in place good or bad? The shutdown of small businesses. So how do we bring grace space into our homes when everything seems so volatile now, or even in businesses where they're either swamped with too much work or their clientele has dried up? How do we use grace space in the new year?
Well, it always starts with ourselves. So the first thing I had to do was get a pulse on myself and realize I'm going to have to re-navigate and reorder my life, both in the emotional side, kind of the heart side, and the head side, my physical space. The amount of intensity in the conversations I was having was growing around me, the clientele, to the amount of clientele that were kind of knocking at my door, so to speak. I had to start really figuring that piece out. And then I had to make sure that I had enough left over, so to speak, with my marriage and my kids, because I'm both a mother and a wife, and I value those roles as well. And I think as I started recognizing, what does grace space look like for me as a mother? What does the grace space look like for me as a coach? What does grace space look like for me as a leader in this community? What does grace space look like for me as a wife? I just kind of had to stop and really look at my roles. And of course, for me personally, and I find this for a lot of people, you usually have to do less, not more. It's really about, let's slow this down. Let's pull over. Let's figure out how to get some more margin in your life. So for me, it was things like, I'm done with the news. The news was crazy. It was bringing up my anxiety. I had enough challenges throughout the day without hearing the bickering on the news. I also realized that even with our family and our space, I just had to slow things down a little bit more. I think I started moving my clientele back to around 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. because my kids were home more. And I needed to be able to have that space to just be present for them. I wanted to have dinner with them. I wanted to be able to connect with my husband and recognize, wow, we have a lot going on in our world. Let's not try and add more to the plate. So we had more of those conversations. My husband came up with a term that said, how do we be fully present in this moment? And so I think we would just look at each other and he'd say, presence, just presence, Heather.
Okay.
And I'd say, that's a whole new level. Why? Because my plans got ripped out from underneath me, but so did my kids' plans. So did my daughter's senior year. So did my son's junior year. And how do we navigate those? Well, we got to slow everything down and talk about it and make sure that we are just not even talk about it, just give space to go, wow, I'm really readjusting and communicating. We're here for one another. We're here for one another. It's not the time to take on a new project. It's not the time to go and book a lot of things on your calendar. It's the time to start pulling back. And I started saying no to a couple of things, like even some public speaking and things. I said, no, this is not the season for me to do this. Partly because I'm too tired. I don't feel up for that. I don't feel up for getting out there and trying to figure this piece out. The last public event I remember I was speaking to a large group, and it was right before COVID hit. And it was the funniest thing. It was like one of my last speaking engagements. And after that, I realized this is too intense. I don't want to keep trying to do these engagements during COVID. I'm just going to pull back. So I started politely saying no. And it's honestly then what moved us into doing podcasts, Christina. So anyways, kind of gray space gets to happen everywhere as we start staying curious with where we're at, what we need, and what we're able to offer, and really just what feels beyond us right now. And as we do that with ourselves, we're able to actually create that around us. And we invite people into that.
So you just went over the 7 different aspects of gray space. I mean, a few of them are connection versus protection, trust versus fear, freedom versus control. So do we need to assess these, all of them all the time? Like certain ones, I told you, like connection versus protection, that one resonated with me more. Certain ones are going to, hit the nail on the head. Do we analyze all of these, or do certain ones, should we focus on a certain one at a time? Does it depend more on events around us that we need to address? How do we monitor that we're assessing all of these at the same time? Or you get what I'm saying?
I totally do. I was just thinking when you were saying that. I think what I think I want to offer the truth is that all of us carry this within us. There's something powerful about writing it down and putting it on paper and creating 7 of them that creates a quote tool that makes me be much more present to the choice I have in that moment. So I'll be honest with you, I can't remember all 7 of them, but I have it here on my desk, and I'll look down at it when I'm working with clients. I just have it in front of me, like a big old Post-it, so to speak, and say, wait a minute, Heather, you can actually respond right now, or you can react.
Okay.
And because people's anxiety and a lot of intensity is increasing, everything from COVID to the holidays to just the challenges companies are facing and personal lives are facing. I do both personal coaching and corporate coaching, and we're all at new spaces. And frankly, to hear about it, I do 20, 30 calls a week. That can wear on me. Yeah. Where my coaching used to be much more relaxed. It's intense now. And so I had to create my own gray space around me. I had to say, okay, how do you respond in this moment, Heather, not react to it? How do you question this and not accuse? How do you make sure that you're keeping the language constructive? And not only that, how are you helping them do all that? So, it just makes me think of a conversation I had with just an amazing leader. And, she was just dealing with so much emotions around this potential move in the department. And I was listening to her, and I just remember thinking, I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing a lot of emotions, and I'm hearing a lot of her amazing ability to restructure, but it's all kind of tangled up together. So what I just gently said is, let's make a list of everything on the head side. Let's make everything on the list on the heart side. And the head side is, here's all the great structure, and here's all the positions. Now, here's what's making you nervous on the heart side. Everything from, is this the right person? And can I lead this many? And do I have what it takes? And I'm still struggling with them because, I'm mad that this is how they handled the situation, 3 months ago. And I was then able to help separate that out. So again, that goes back to, it's questioning. I'm helping her question it instead of accuse. She wants to do that. Every human being wants to be called to something greater. The clearer we are on what that looks like, I just get to say, hey, stay curious here and question with me. And because I have such high level trust with all my clients, they don't hear that as a reprimand. They don't hear that as a shame thing. They hear that as, oh, thank God she helped me spiral up. Because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to spiral up. So I find these 7 attributes very powerful to help someone reach for something because they can feel that they're slipping down. And it's like a handle that I kind of offer them and give them, but it's what I do for myself as well, so that I can help myself stay in the conversation and offer my best, both for me and for the other person.
So is that how you would like literally help somebody else with gray space, where you could say, you know what, you are accusing, you're not questioning, or, you know, I think you're living in fear and not in trust. And then we explain it. Like, is that a good way to introduce it to our spouse, our kids, our coworkers, to actually identify it like that? Like, I do that with my husband. I tell that to Vince. I'm like, you know, I'm reacting. I'm not responding to you. I'm getting very upset right now. And so,
Well done, by the way.
thank you.
And it was what I was going to say, is just own it, and then give yourself the permission to have the space you need. Say, I can't respond. I'm getting flooded by reacting. So I'm just going to kind of go to my corner here so that I can get to a better headspace and figure out how to respond to you. And I think it just reminds us we always have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing that many of us live at, this kind of victim mentality of, I have to react. I'm gently reminding them, like, no, you don't. I mean, I understand that you want to. I don't judge you on that. I want to react too. But you do have a chance for how to respond. And again, I always want to remind people, remember, it's not good or bad. You need to be able to react. You know, if someone's going after your kid, I hope as a mother, you know how to react and throw down. I always joke about the mother bear. I'm like, yeah, don't mess with the mother bear.
Mm-hmm.
There's a mother bear in all of us mothers. So I'm like, oh, we will kill for our children's kind of thing. You know, like, you want to react. You don't want to sit there and go, I'm going to respond how this guy's going to, you know, nab my child or something. So I think there's always this awareness of, you have that in you. But if it's a high trust level relationship, we don't want to be living in that reacting. So that awareness and that conversation you're having with Vince, do you see how it's already helping? Mm-hmm. You're not going to get it right every time, but you just reach for a handle that says the self-awareness of, oh my gosh, I'm reacting at the person I said vows to, and the person I love more than anything in this world. And I know I don't have to react to him, but I don't know what else quite to do. And I want to get to a response. So hang on. And he can either help you in that moment, or you can kind of just pull back and say, okay, here's what I realize I'm feeling. And then you always want to go after the emotions. We react because there's a negative emotion going on.
Mm-hmm. We talked about in a couple podcasts ago how I don't like resolutions because they don't last. And so these are lifestyle goals. This is a way of life. How do we ensure that we're doing constant growth? How do we make lasting growth in our life? Because we get inspired, it's the new year, and then it kind of gets diluted and it fades and things come up in life. How can we hold on to these principles and really bring them to the core of who we are?
Well, we have to do it with people. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like we practice with people. The only thing that it gets hard is if we practice, and I think we talked this in another podcast about the trust level's low. We keep practicing with the wrong person. That's when it gets messy for both parties. So I would say something that's at this high level of thinking of gray space, you practice with safe relationships. You practice with people in that 8, 9, or 10 high level of trust there. On a continuum of 0 to 10, you're looking at those high levels of trust. So you're right on. Practicing this with your husband is where it starts. Mm-hmm. Then it trickles out there to your kids. You want your kids to be able to trust you. You want them to have this grace towards one another. And let's face it, most of us as parents don't know what we're doing half the time. Mm-hmm. And just when we get a season down, you know, all of a sudden they become a teenager. And, you know, it makes me think of maybe this is a good story to tell. Is last night I was sitting down to dinner, and my 18-year-old daughter comes and sits down, and she starts talking to me. And you know that look on your kid's face? You could tell they want to ask you something. I've been coaching all day. I'm exhausted. And I'm out to dinner, and she says, can I go to Hawaii? Well, and thank you. Thank you for that look, because for mother, right? Like, what are you talking about? We're in the middle of COVID. What? Yeah. I looked at my husband across the table. Thank God my husband was there. And because I could tell I didn't have the emotional bandwidth, and I wanted to just react. Yeah. Have the response ability engaged quite yet. So it's like I had to buy myself a couple seconds. And I thought, I'm just going to look at my husband and let him handle this for a second while I buy myself time. Well, she's 18, and bottom line is, can she ask us yes or no? Not really anymore. She's an adult. My job is to try and stay as an advisor. So I'm switching my parent role, but I'm not good at it yet. Toddler years down. I had the other years down, but now I have an 18-year-old daughter. I'm like, I'm figuring out how to be a mother to an adult now. What does that even look like? So I'm overwhelmed with all my own personal emotions going on over there at the table. My husband kind of buys me a couple seconds because I think he sees my deer in headlight look. And I'm looking, I'm like, help me say this nicely because I want to say, how many ways do I say no?
Right.
And he kind of handled for a second. He said, well, that's an interesting thing to think about. How are you feeling about this trip? Ask some kind of staying curious question. And then I was able to follow up with, well, how much do you have in your savings account? Why? Because I'm trying to say, remember, you're an adult. You get to pay for this. And
Good.
I could tell, like, oh, shoot, I was hoping mom and dad would pick up the tab. I can't go to Hawaii. Why am I going to send my 18-year-old to Hawaii? So I'm thinking all this stuff too, right?
Right.
But I'm trying to stay curious. Later on that night, I talked to my husband and I go, how many ways do we tell our daughter no? And can we tell her no that she's I mean, how do we handle this? And I don't have a lot of good thinking thoughts in my mind. All I want to do is react to this. And I can tell that that's not the way to do it. And he said, let me handle it. I will talk with her tomorrow. We'll walk through all the scenarios and all the costs and all the complications, and she'll come to know. And I said, oh, thank God. Go do that, Darren. You handle that. Well, sure enough, at the end of the day, I get off the phone. They call me up to her room and they say, hey, Mom, we want to talk to you about Hawaii. And I'm thinking, all right, Darren talked to her, figured this all out. Well, they're both sitting there, the father and the daughter, my husband and my daughter, and they both decided that Hawaii's a go. And I go, what just happened? Thank you. Okay. I look at my husband like, what just happened? And then I see the look on his face and I have implicit trust for my husband and how he fathers our daughter. And it's something we've partnered in our whole life. So I immediately just go, I am shocked, but I also trust you implicitly. So I looked at Darren and I go, wow, it sounds like you figured it all out. And he goes, we did. And they went down the list of everything they figured out. And it made so much sense that I was able to get on board. So I got help into responding, if that makes sense. I got help into, I can feel the pull to react and I can feel how limited I am and I don't know how to handle this. And here's the amazing news. Once we figured out what the tab would cost, and with her and her best friend, she's working at Target. She ended up making exactly the cost of that trip. So we're kind of teaching our child then how to be more of advisors and to walk through it all. And now it's your decision. So she sat in it and realized she had the full weight of her decision and she was feeling anxious about it a little later on. I said, what are you anxious about? Well, she'd never spent this kind of money on herself before. Yeah. Well, it's an important adult life stage. I go, yeah, that's a lot of money to spend on yourself. How are you feeling about it? Yeah, you're going to be taken out of your savings, but you know what? You've worked really hard and you've saved. She's one of those kids that saved and saved since she was 13. So she's got a nice old wad in her account. But again, that was an amazing journey for me as a mother to go, well done, Heather. Well done, at least committing to responding, even though I didn't know how to do it. But because my husband and I are committed to this space of responding, we're figuring it out together. And if we can't respond, we're just knowing we're not going to react right now. We're just going to figure it out together. And one of us, we're going to bat it back and forth so that we can move to response. Long answer to your question there, Christina, but hopefully that story kind of helps.
I love that you said that because it could have easily gone into the manipulation route. And I was like, okay, how is this going to end? Because obviously as 40-something-year-olds, we're a lot smarter, a lot more than an 18-year-old. And it could have easily been like, oh, I'm going to just give her this information and sway her to my opinion. And then later on, it will come out as manipulation and it will harm the relationship. But the way that Darren handled it and you both handled it was like, here, we're weighing the facts from letting you make the decision. And it became a healthy choice and not a manipulative one, which could have been easy to do. So that was my takeaway from that story.
Right. And it's turned into now, I think, a rite of passage. So she's booked it all. She's learned how to book her own ticket. And what do I want? I want an independent young woman who's smart and intelligent, who's saved for herself and learn how to go play. It's all my values. So she's paying for her own trip. She's going with her best friend. She's booking her own tickets. She's figuring out transportation. She's doing it all. This is her first big adventure she's doing on her own. And now I get to play the role of, you got this, honey. You got this. I'm behind you 100%. And Daddy helped figure out all the different moving parts, which was overwhelming me. And that's what I wanted to say no to, right? No, it's easier to keep you home and just answer the question. But that partnership helped us to respond to a really important life stage now that she's at. And she just booked her first ticket, her first airline ticket. And I think she's going in about 2 weeks. So, here we are. And I feel like did not see that coming. And the pull to manipulate the position and to control it, you're right, would have damaged the relationship. And more importantly, damaged her independence, her sense of critical thinking and making the decision for herself. Why? Because it's just easier for me as a mother to say no. And it's easier for me to feel in control. I'll keep my baby back in her little nest, that of thing, right? That's not the end game here. The end game is for her to be able to think for herself and be able to walk through that. So how we respond to individuals as a parent, as a wife, as a coworker, you just name it, go down the list. Choosing responding versus reacting. Sometimes you have to buy yourself time and just say, I know I want to get there. I'm just not able to do it yet.
And that goes back to your trust versus fear and your freedom versus control. Like you could easily want to control her and not give her freedom, but you gave her the freedom to make her choice. And the fear can be huge right now. Fear is huge right now. And so is it a valid fear, or is it just my own mama bear fears? So yeah, weighing it all out.
Right. And, you're right on. I think about that. I think I probably hit all 7, and I'll just say I accidentally hit all 7. And the reason I'm saying that is, 1, I had a good partner, but 2, it goes back to, you do carry this within you. You just most of us don't realize it. So the only thing I've done here is really put it in a clear language. So I can tell myself, Heather, you can react to this, which everything is just yelling and screaming no, which may be the right answer, let's be honest. But I will tell you that I walked away thinking, oh, thank goodness, Darren's going to help her say no the nice way. Because I just want to say no. And to let the process play out, isn't that part of what we want in trusting relationships, even in our children? It's not my job to say no to her anymore. It's my job to help her say no to what she wants to say no and yes to. That's my only job. And to try and do it as objectively and unbiasedly as possible, man, it takes all the gray space as possible. It takes all 7 of those things as we're raising these adult children.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. It goes by so fast. Join us next time when we introduce our new series, which we are so excited about, the Marriage Partnership, Stronger Together. We're going to talk about longevity and keeping your marriage strong. It's easy to be a newlywed. Well, no, it's not. It's hard to be a newlywed. There's a different set of challenges when you hit 10 years, 20, and beyond. So we're going to talk about that. Heather, you have 27 years. I have 20. So we can bring a lot to the table.
On the other side of 2 decades, huh?
Oh, Lord. I know. I need a little Tiffany box to celebrate that. So please subscribe to the Heather Penny podcast. And for questions, comments, and resources, visit heatherpenny.com. And also go back to our previous podcast to learn more about Grace Space. Remember, to live your best life, you have to live intentionally. Have a great day, and we can't wait for you to join us next week. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.